Are you ready to move to Sioux Falls?
Welcome back to another episode of Move to Sioux Falls. We got to talk to Chuck Shaver, LinkedIn guru expert, and he had some unique tips of how to boost your sales online. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. And now let's blow up your sales.
You know, I lived all around kind of Arizona. I lived a year in Phoenix and then 6 months in Prescott and 6 months in Lake Havasu City. Lake Havasu City was like really hot. But yeah, met a girl that wanted to move to the Midwest and didn't want to go back to Indiana where I knew everyone and she didn't know anyone. And we're looking for, you know, and that might be the answer to one of your questions is why Sioux Falls. And it was,
For sure.
It was because the size and the opportunity, you know, it was like, we wanted something that was big enough that we didn't feel like we were giving up too much, you know, like culture and good restaurant mix and, you know, activities to do and things of that nature. But still had that small town feel, you know, wasn't some big, huge metropolis you'd get sucked up in. And so back in the early 90s, it was, you know, kept hitting #1 for Money Magazine's #1 place to live. You know, back then it was all Gateway and Citibank and Wells Fargo.
Yeah, big banking push back then. Yeah.
So, you know, and back then real estate was much more affordable, you know, compared to the rest of the nation. You know, it's now it's, you know, grown up and kept pace with them a little bit more.
For sure.
But
COVID kind of just skyrocketed that too. So
yeah. But yeah, so we loaded up the truck and moved on out and we've been here ever since. So
kids? Got kids?
I have 3 children. So I have 2 daughters older, and then I just had a son 3 years ago.
Okay. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah. Old dad.
Yeah.
Wife number 2. So
okay. Gotcha.
Younger wife that never had kids and decided later in life that she wanted kids.
For
and
sure.
I signed up for the deal and
you're like, all right.
Yeah. So I'm 56 with a 3-year-old at home.
Yeah. My neighbor actually just had a kid. I think he was like, he's either 48 or 50. I can't, but I was like, man, I couldn't imagine that. I'm having a third on my way right now. And I'm 30. And I was like, man, like to kind of go through those whole stages of life. And then you're like at 50, you're like, maybe we'll do this again, you know? So, but hey, I always just say God's got a plan for everyone. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, it's different.
Yeah.
I feel guilty for my older daughters because I feel like I'm a much better father now.
Yeah, you're more like a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have way more patience. I don't have as much energy, but I have way more patience than I did when I was in my 20s and 30s having kids, you know. So
I mean, that's just like learning and maturing and growing. I feel like by the time I'm not patient, I'm like so bad at it. And I'm like, all right, these kids probably by the time they're 20, I'll be patient. But and then I always go to my mom like, hey, you were never this way when with me, but you're this way with my son. Why are you so patient? Why are you so like have such self-control? And she's like, well, I learned those things over the course of your 30 years.
Well, and at my age, I'm almost kind of like a hybrid parent / grandparent.
For sure.
Because it's just, I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. Yeah. And you know, I put myself in a position where, you know, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. You know, it's not the money stress and the title, you know. It's like when you're young, it's all about how is this affecting me? Mm-hmm. You know, it's like I don't have as much free time, the stress of money, the stress of your available time and things like that. And when you don't have as much a stress of money and things get more aligned to what's important in life, I think those stresses kind of go away. Yeah. And you focus and it just rolls off your shoulder a lot easier these days. So.
For sure. Well, something to look forward to.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe in 20 years you'll have another one.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
If my wife wants to, she would gladly. She wants 7. So
well, there you go.
I'm like, and I told her 3 to 5, and she's like, let's meet in the middle at 5. And I'm like,
That's
the
a-
sales
that's a-
tactic
that's a
doesn't
big
work
family.
here
That's a-
on the kiddos thing. So
were you growing up in a big family?
so she had 5. Her dad had 10,
Ooh.
and I had 4, and my dad had 4. My dad wanted like 10.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, but anyways, we're here at the Move to Sioux Falls location, the Ziggy. That's what me and my wife call it.
Nice.
It's Sodex Days property. And that's a short-term rental property management company that we run. But I also run a real estate company. And I always say it's not just another transaction. We're about educating home buyers, home sellers, investors with single-family home. But it's also about educating on the community and why you'd want to be here.
Right.
And so that's kind of why I like created this platform, and just have a vision to like give back to people, that other realtors might not be doing. So just a little bit of insight of why we do this. We'll start with some HitFire questions. Super easy. First one's going to be favorite book.
Favorite book? I don't read books. I've never been.
What about like an ebook?
I have too
or
much.
something?
I'm an
Go-Giver
online
or
guy,
something.
so
Okay.
I'm like a short form.
Okay, let's do like favorite article on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I couldn't even think of like a favorite article.
Okay.
I read hundreds a day.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. That's a horrible question.
That's okay.
Corey.
Hey, if you think of someone, we'll roll back to it.
Okay.
Okay. Fair.
Okay. I literally have probably 24 books on my shelf that have never been finished.
Oh man.
So I'm horrible with
favorite
books.
book you never finished.
Yeah, I read a lot of, like sales books and things like that. So I went through a long time ago, the Dale Carnegie course, and I hung on to a lot of those books with the Dale Carnegie because it's that whole giver's gain type of mentality where it's like, don't go into an interaction with somebody expecting to create this relationship to try to sell them something.
For sure.
It's more of how can you help them, and then they'll be your friend and your, referral for life if you help them out, kind of thing. So that's always been kind of like my model.
100%. They did Dale Carnegie do the dog book? I feel like he did some dog of like don't eat the dog or something. As like
I'm not familiar with that one. He wrote a lot of books. I'm not familiar with that one. But.
Well, if I find it, I'll put it in the description, and it'll be good for the audience. So favorite sports team?
I'd probably have to go with the Colts.
The Colts.
Yeah.
Okay. Big Indiana guy. So
originally from Indianapolis, and even though we picked them up later in life when we stole them from Baltimore, I've been kind of a Colts fan. I grew up a Cowboys fan as a kid, but once we got the Colts, I transitioned.
Good.
So.
Don't be a Cowboys fan. I'm a Giants fan, so I just never be a Colts fan.
Right.
So. I'm glad it was football though. It wasn't like
as long as it's not the Eagles. I've never been a fan of the Eagles.
They're the wrong team for that city. It's a city of brotherly love, and the Eagles are just mean. Yeah. I feel like always. So, favorite thing to do in Sioux Falls?
I like to take my son to, we have a membership at the zoo and the Washington Pavilion. Those are 2 like great annual family membership type, very inexpensive annual memberships, and so much to do that you can pretty much go back and back every single week. And
they just got that new splash park. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was a big hit this summer.
Yeah.
So
I think they just did Zubu Day.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, we were just there. I think last week they had like a $5 thing, and
I haven't been to that in a long time. I should have checked it out this year, but I didn't.
It was good, and they got the Lions there now.
Right.
So that's a big attraction.
Well, and that's the thing; they keep adding new things there, and at the pavilion, exchanging out exhibits and adding new things. So it's it's always something cool to do. So
good. Favorite restaurant here in Sioux Falls?
I'm a South Sider, so I kind of like to stay in the neighborhood. So 2210's a big one for me.
That's a great one.
Or maybe McNally's.
Yeah.
Or 2 places that I'll pop in on a regular basis.
Yeah. That's on what is it, Western and
69th and Western.
69th and Western, yeah.
Yep.
I think Daily Clean's over there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's on the third corner.
Yes.
So they're like Yeah, all right there.
So that was number 3 probably on the list, right?
Yeah, I mean that's more of like for coffee. I'll go there for coffee.
Yeah, that's what Jeremy Brown, he was on. He was like clean being clean food and drink, or what is it again? Daily clean. Yes.
Right.
Sorry. Clean Bean is the other one on 85th in Minnesota with the car wash place.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've got good coffee.
Hard to keep them all together. So many.
There's a lot of choices.
So cool.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Move to Sioux Falls. Your support means a lot to us. Make sure to follow and subscribe at Move to Sioux Falls to stay up with the latest content.
So kind of getting into the long form stuff, like kind of give me, I know we talked about a little bit, just background of your story. And I know you talked about you went from being in Indiana, going to Arizona for a little bit, making the move to Sioux Falls. Like, what was the stuff that went through your head besides like, hey, my wife just doesn't want to go to Indiana because she doesn't know anyone from Arizona.
Right.
I know we talked a little bit about it, like off the set a little bit, but
right. So the way I stumbled across Sioux Falls was I was living out in Arizona, and my girlfriend at the time had relatives that were in Madison, South Dakota.
Okay.
So in the early 90s, people were familiar with Sioux Falls in the Midwest because they were hitting Money Magazine's #1 place to live, and a lot of big business, Citibank and Wells Fargo and Gateway were, up and coming here and looking to hire people. So the unemployment was real low, the crime was real low, real estate costs were real affordable, and it was just getting a lot of great press. And we were looking to move to the Midwest, to a place that was large enough that we felt like it had the things that we wanted, but not some huge metropolis. So, so we ended up coming through Sioux Falls a couple of times actually for a family reunion that was up in Madison. And every time we went through Sioux Falls, we're like, Jesus, such a great city. There's so much to do here. And we'd
probably
go downtown.
Saw something new every time you came.
Yeah, because it's always growing. And honestly, in the early 90s, I mean, downtown wasn't a fraction of what it is now. Yeah. It's got so much going on now. And but still, it was just this great, like, small city with this hometown charm. Everyone was friendly. People are always waving and saying hi, and it was just too good to be true, to check so many boxes for us. And we're like, why not Sioux Falls? So it was, we honestly, we thought we were going to come here, make some money, go up the corporate, ladder a little bit, and go back to Arizona. It was going to be like a 2 to 4 year plan.
Yeah.
But, we fell in love with Sioux Falls so much, and ended up having a family here that we stayed forever. Yeah. So I live now in Sioux Falls longer than I've lived anywhere. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Tell me about like your trajectory of your like job positions. Like, were you always in sales? I know like your big thing right now is, LinkedIn sales, how to get, leads, generate, stuff like that. But like, how did you kind of morph? Were you always like, I'm a sales guy, I'm going to do this always?
I don't think anyone like goes to school and says, I'm going to go to school for sales. Maybe business, but not, no one gets into sales on purpose, they say. So, when I was in college, a professor said, if you really want to learn if you're cut out for sales, they said, take a summer job doing one of two things: either sell used cars.
I was going to ask used cars. Or
sell office equipment, copiers. Okay. And they said two completely different things, but the two toughest sales jobs out there.
Okay.
He said with car sales, the customers come to you. They're there. Yeah. You don't have to go and prospect and get customers. They come to you, but they hate you the moment the overcoming objection is instantaneous, because they already don't trust you the second they meet you. Yeah. So there's that aspect, and then closing the deal there and then, because if they leave the lot,
they're gone.
They probably won't come back, kind of thing. So that was one. And with office equipment, it was people sign long-term contracts. It's long sales cycles. It's a lot of knocking on doors. It's a lot of, going out face to face. And you have to keep those relationships fresh and going for when they're ready,
for sure,
you know, to have the opportunity to be top of mind and do that. So I ended up doing both.
Oh, okay.
So I did car sales when I was out in Arizona before I moved here. And then the first job I took was with Century Business Products selling copiers here in Sioux Falls. I did that for 4.5 years. And then an opportunity came up with getting into computers, which, you know, computers were hot, Gateway and everything else. I didn't sell Gateway. I sold Hewlett Packard and IBM and those sorts of things. But I got in with the company and just, you know, I was in tech sales most of my career. I was an early adopter of LinkedIn, and with sales, you know, there's stressful times. You're not hitting quota. It's kind of tough to always, you know, keep it going and keep closing deals and making new ones. And my secret weapon became LinkedIn, and the better LinkedIn got, the better I got.
Yeah, because like, what year did LinkedIn come out again? I thought
it's been out over 20 years now.
Yeah, okay.
But you know, I don't remember.
It came out before Facebook even came out, right? Or was it right at that same time?
They're in the same era.
Because I remember I got Facebook. I was like a big MySpace or AIM guy if you were an Apple user.
Right.
And I think as soon as Facebook came, it was like big. And I think that was like 2009, 2008.
Right.
It was like that era. So
it was before that, because they've been out over 20 years.
So I was like, wow, LinkedIn.
But
really
they
was
weren't.
on top of it.
It was. I'm trying to remember what year Microsoft bought them.
Okay.
But I was with LinkedIn before Microsoft bought them.
Oh wow.
So I've been
super early adopter.
16, 17 years. I've been doing LinkedIn.
Wow.
So I just found it to be what would balance out my sales and help me sell a little bit more and be a little bit more consistent and keep a full funnel on a regular basis. And then it just morphed into, then, you know, my peers were asking me, you know, what are you doing different? You know, how are you taking it to that next level? And I said, LinkedIn, you know, and then management got word of it, and they were asking me to help train, you know, sales staff. And then other people and other businesses were doing that. And then I ended up doing that full time for a company for a couple of years out of Silicon Valley, and then went off on my own in 2020.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So has LinkedIn always been, because when I got into it, I was in college, right? 2012-ish. My business professor's like, hey, you got to get a LinkedIn right away. Get your experiences in there. I was like, okay. And like, had it always been kind of structured where it's like profile, a little bit about you, and then where you're going to school and like your job experiences and like recommendations, or was it like completely different back when you adopted it?
Well, I mean, they keep adding and changing things and moving things around. So it's changed quite a bit over the years, but you know, and there's a lot more people on it now. There's over 1 billion people on it now. But the original mentality of most people was it's a resume. You know, that's how everyone started out. It's put your past history, your accomplishments, you know, your timetable. It was basically just people used it like a resume.
And it was weird because like people, like companies actually didn't really look at your LinkedIn when you were applying for jobs. You would just send in your resume a lot of times.
Yeah. Up until
now
maybe about 5 years ago, that started like shifting.
Yeah.
But yeah, and people, you know, still accept traditional, you know, resumes, but I think people look first now on social, and with the help of Microsoft and the growth and the popularity and everything that they have hooks in, if you know, Google search somebody's name, their LinkedIn profile is going to be on that first page. 100%. So they're going to see you. So it's become more and more important for the profile to be optimized. And there's several layers to that. I mean,
for sure,
it's like a website, you know, it's like there's the visual. Does it look good? Does it look professional? And then there's the SEO that you can build into it to drive traffic to it. And then there's how much information do you put in that's going to pre-sell you or pre-talk about your products and services. And the better you do at all those three things will determine how much, you know, like visibility and activity you can get from it. But then on the backside, there's hundreds of settings that most people never touch. And none of them serve you well. So, I mean, you're wide open to
They're not like doing anything for their algorithm or to boost your SEO with those settings.
No, they don't help the algo. Like if you turn them on, turn them off.
Yeah.
But like for instance, LinkedIn's selling all your data and everything you're doing, not just on LinkedIn, but anything on the web, because you've given them rights to by default. So unless you go in, you turn that off. In the settings, you're wide open to that. So if you're getting a lot of spam, if you're getting a lot of unwarranted solicitations, those sorts of things,
then go
you can mitigate a lot of that by turning some of that.
They're doing that with like new like cars now. They're like, hey, we sell your data, and like you have to go in and turn all that stuff off now. Which is, I saw that on just a commercial recently. I was like,
I mean, everyone is. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
You know, so
who would have thought like data was like the gold mine for everything?
Oh yeah.
You know, so
it's the key. It's the key.
So okay, you talked about like doing used car salesman job and the copy office product sales job. Now I'm in real estate. I'm publishing a book here in January. It's called Not Just Another Transaction. It helps home buyers, sellers, and investors who are buying single family homes on the whole process of real estate.
Okay.
It's an animal, right? It's a guide to like kind of refer back to, because there's so much information. So like, let's say you're buying a house, right? And you know nothing about a house, or it's your second time buying and you're like, hey, I forgot everything. Now I sit in a meeting with you for like an hour and I got to go, hey, this is why you should use me. Here's all the education I should tell you. It's like information overload, right? So I'm like, hey, I'm going to create this book, and I'm not trying to like sell you on the house right away, right? It's a different way of doing it than I think a lot of agents do it today. When you were doing used car salesmanship though, you were like, hey, if they left a lot, we were like, we had to like land a deal, right?
Or box.
Yeah. So like, what would be like your key points to be like, hey, if I go over X, Y, and Z in this situation, I got them. Like they're hooked on this line.
Usually it was, I mean, not to, I won't give any trade car sales secrets. But
I don't know if anyone's going to use them.
I mean, we all knew what the price was because we had like a code on the car. So we knew what the cost was on it.
Yeah.
Like, and we already knew in our heads where we could go with the price.
Yeah. So you're like,
so if somebody kind of, you know, if somebody had the interest level where they took a test drive, where they like start talking about price, like, could I get it for this kind of price? You know, they're starting to negotiate on price. I would already know if we're even in the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And if once we're in the wheelhouse, if we're not, I'll be like, you know, no. You know, I'd get them to where if they were comfortable to be within our given, we can close a deal in that price range. Then we always just called it get them in the box, which is like we had a guy that was like a phenomenal, you know, closer. Yeah. That it would be, hey, I don't know. Let me get with my manager and let me see if we can, you know, just accept an offer like that kind of thing. And we would get him in a private meeting room with the guy that was the closer, and he'd pretty much be like, all right, you know, if you like the car and, you know, and this is the dollar amount, and he'd say, let's find a way to make it happen, you know, and they'd negotiate back and forth until they both were comfortable enough to walk out with a signed deal. So
it's almost like I need the listing agent with me and be like, hey, you like this house? Hey, can we negotiate this? Let's close this right up right here.
Right.
That would be the easiest way, but then we're not doing like cold AC where we're being in the best interest of our clients if they're like, no, I'm stuck at this number.
Right.
So whereas I feel like a dealership's like, hey, we can go down a little, like we have some leeway.
Right. Well, and it was also used cars. So there's it's not,
they're depreciating assets where you're like, all right.
And the money that we had in different cars were all across the board. So it wasn't like you could really, anyone could like, you could look at a, you know, like a Kelley Blue Book, like estimate of what that car should be valued at, but you really didn't know. Some cars we were in, you know, great on because it was a trade-in on from a different car or something, but whatever.
See, and I think that's what like has more sales, if you'd agree with this, like, because of social media and the internet being so like there's exposure to so much information now. It's like, hey, if I'm going to get in a sale, I really have to gain trust over like price now, because they could just look up like, oh, saw a couple of comps on these houses or saw Kelly Blue Book. This car cost this much. I'm not going on like $8,000 on a $5,000 Kelly Blue Book thing.
Right.
So I almost feel like trust is like the shift for salesmen nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
And that's a long-term game then.
Right. Right. And that's where, you know, why I play in the social media space, because like I make a lot of connections. I make probably 100 new connections a week.
Yeah. I think I saw you had like over 15,000 on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was it slow at first and then kindly just took off? Or
I mean, it's between 3,000 to 5,000 a year.
Okay.
You know, a slow build up. And then obviously the bigger you get, the more reach you have and the more visibility and the more opportunity to grow. So it does kind of hockey stick a little bit.
Okay.
You know, where I'm getting close to the 5,000 a year kind of like growth, where if I looked at a few years ago, it'd be like half that. So as I tick up, larger audience, larger reach, it's going to be, you know, much, much larger growth year after year. But you just...
And it's kind of funny how society, like I have a cousin that does like Instagram growth stuff, and he says he has a book out, and it talks about like, hey, once you get to that 1,000 mark on the followers, it's like, okay, your next hump is like getting to 5,000. Once you get to 10,000, it's almost like, hey, you hit 10,000, there's like this societal like, oh, these guys got a lot of followers, maybe like what they're saying or like what they're doing is valid. I should go follow them and see like if they pique my interest, kind of thing, which is kind of like an odd thing because these guys are all random strangers at first, right?
Yeah, but you know, that and every social medium is different. You know, how you grow, how your visibility
for sure
doesn't make sense for your market, you know, and who my wife's, she does all her stuff on Instagram. So, so she's a chiropractor that specializes in pediatrics. So her demographic is females between the ages of 20 and 40. You know, and Instagram's a great place, you know, to get that. So she'll put a post out that will get 1 million views.
And you're just like, how?
I'm like, I hate you. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Because you'll never get that on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn,
yeah, it's tough. You know, so she's killing
Unless
me.
you're like an Ed Milet or you're a global influencer posting something out. You're like,
right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I know you like you have your subscription group, so I don't want to like try to ask you for all this insider information, but that maybe what's like
I'm an open book. So
okay, so like maybe like
LinkedIn.
what's one tip for people if they're getting started in LinkedIn and they're, I mean, I probably could even use this, right? What's one tip you would give them if they're like, hey, you're started, your page looks professional, you've followed what the college told you to do, now you're in the real world. What's like your go-to first tip for somebody?
You know, look at your profile. You know, it is the first thing, because how you show up in your profile picture, the banner, and your contact information should be the first things that you focus on. Because, I mean, you don't need, if you meet your clients in a polo, then wear a polo. You don't have to be all suited up in a tie. But get a good, clear picture in tight, because 68% of people that are looking at your profile are doing it on mobile. So a small. Smartphone, the in tighter on the face, the better, so they can actually see what you look like. And a nice, clear picture with a smile and, you know, not with sunglasses or, you know, a mask on or something like that, or too distracting of a background kind of thing. Sure. And then the banner is your free billboard. Yeah. I mean, tell them what you do. Make it like simple, like 5th grade level, so they, at a glance, it looks good and they know what you do. And do some branding, put some, if you've got a logo and company colors, add that into the banner. And then when it comes to contact information, too many people don't fill it out. And if they do, they use personal information. Use it like a business card. Put your business email address in there, put a contact number that's a business contact, your company website, fill it out in there, and that'll help you both on SEO and people having the ability to reach out and connect with you.
I love it already. I'm already thinking about, I got to change my banner. Normally I meet people in polo, so I should change probably from my suit, but I found that some people like a suit when
and
you're
that's
showing.
fine.
Some people
I mean,
like the polo.
me, I work with
and sometimes I'll just wear a
everyone from
t-shirt
every
because I'm like,
industry,
hey, I'm
so.
doing property management today, and I'll have like a nice Sioux Falls t-shirt or a Soda
Right.
Stays logo t-shirt, right? But you're like, you're on the job. I almost think like real estate almost is like a blue collared hustle job usually.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to fit that one mold of like, this is what you wear every day. So
Yeah. And,
but I love the advice. I'm going to go polo because it's right in the middle.
Right.
Both.
Right. Right.
So.
And I'm kind of in a sport coat in mine. So I
like it.
Yeah. But I deal with blue collar and small business and high finance too. So everything in between. So.
Yeah. What's something that you've like really appreciated with Sioux Falls' growth in the last 30 years that you've been here?
They're downtown
again. Yeah.
I mean, Falls Park keeps getting better. Phillips Avenue keeps getting better. More restaurants and entertainment and bigger venues coming in, even out at the Denny and things. I mean, it's almost gotten to the point, especially in the summer, where you have to pick and choose what you're going to do on the weekend. 'Cause there's too many options almost, which is a good thing to have. But yeah, it's just the
makeup of downtown is a lot different feel than a lot of other places. I'd say Omaha is close. They're bigger than us for sure. But I lived in Chicago during an internship, and it's not like you walk out, there's all these high rises everywhere. And like you have smaller buildings, different, it's not just like ton of apartments.
It's kind of like how uptown Minneapolis used to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
before I was alive, probably. So
no, kind of like I
like early 2000s area.
Like yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because it's gone through some woes. Like I was up there recently, and I don't even recognize it up there now. So.
Yeah. Is there anything that's like surprised you on like the surrounding areas, like Harrisburg, Brandon, that you've been like, wow, I never thought X about those? They're almost like
I never
suburbs
thought my property taxes would get so high with all the school growth.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's probably not good promotion for.
No, hey, that's okay. I mean, we got no state income tax, so
right.
The mayor even talked about on our first episode. Hey, if you want to get rid of grocery taxes, with the election coming up, it's like, well, we gotta like fund all of these new things that are growing in the city somehow. It's either like through your property taxes or a state income tax comes into play. Like I don't want state income tax. It's bad for business owner.
Right.
So, how has it been being on your own now with LinkedIn? I know you said you were helping a company out in Silicon Valley, and now like you went on your own 2020. Was that kind of a product of COVID and you're like, I'm ready to...
No, actually COVID messed that up kind of bad.
Oh.
So, because I had decided that I wanted to go off on my own pre-COVID and made an agreement with them that I would be their contractor to take their in-person training over for the upper Midwest.
Oh, okay.
So that was my gravy train. That was my startup, money, because I was going to make a living wage just off what they were going to give me in contract work. And then we inked the deal January 31st of 2020. And then a month later, they said, sorry, we have nothing for you because nobody's doing in-person training. So, and then my wife said, I want to have a baby. So, and then there's a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
And that employer had me under a pretty strict 2-year non-compete.
Oh,
so
wow. Gotcha.
So I kind of became a stay-at-home dad, figured out if I wanted to do this LinkedIn thing, and restored a boat and got through a pandemic is kind of how I spent a couple of years.
That's
and
awesome.
Decided I wanted to do this and go all in, and I did. And it's been about a little over 2.5 years now. So.
And it's going well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like it.
That's
It's
cool.
a lot of fun. So
non-competes, man, they box you in a corner sometimes.
Yeah, and they say they don't hold up, but the other thing is one of the founding members was my older brother. So
yeah,
I had that whole stickiness. I just didn't want to rock the boat. So.
Yeah, I mean, family.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
right.
Has it been like, so that was in Silicon Valley. Were you doing trainings for that company in Sioux Falls though? Or were you flying over to there and doing trainings
I
over
would
there?
do, I would do some flying, but a lot of it was virtual. So, like I did engagements in Texas. We did a sales kickoff for Miller Hyman Group down in Cancun, for their President's Club. And I went to New York and I traveled all around continent. The only time I left the U.S. was that Cancun President's Club. But everything else was virtual. So, Emphasis out of India was a big client of mine, and 11 o'clock at night meetings, to be in their normal work hours kind of thing got old, especially when they ran past midnight, some of those meetings. So
we're like, hey guys, I'm about to fall asleep.
Right. I mean, I still have, worldwide clients. I mean, but it's, you just make do. And
cost of being a business owner, right? Yeah. So how was the process of like starting the business here in South Dakota? Like, was it awesome? Was it easy?
Yeah. It's really easy to start a business here. I mean, set yourself up, with the state and federal and get your licensing and start paying your taxes and
you're off to the races.
It's quick and easy and pretty painless. So
how has been like the network here of Sioux Falls like helped you grow your business?
Yeah, so I mean, for the last like almost decade, I've been, like worldwide. I really have. And quite honestly, 6-7 years ago, I had big meetings with some big companies locally, but they weren't bought into LinkedIn quite yet. A little bit, behind the coast.
They starting to now?
Oh, now, now. So like the last year and a half, I've purposely, missed working more locally. So I've really focused on it. And the community aspect here, and word of mouth, and people just coming in my door through, multiple people that said they had to talk to me because so-and-so said this or whatever has been phenomenal. Really, the only thing is some of the bigger clients I've worked with, Avera and Midco and some other clients around here, they still don't want to meet in person. They're still, I had probably 24 meetings with Midco to deliver some services in the last 12 months. And I had one in-person meeting. All the rest, they're like, oh, we'll just do a Zoom. Yeah. I was like, come on, but I get out,
Let's bring back the old school a little bit more.
I know.
I feel like everyone kind of went through like a midlife crisis during COVID. It was like, oh, we're in this weird, wonky stay-at-home world. Let's figure out our lives and what do we want to shift? What's really important? Right. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy just how the dynamic has changed and like boosted.
Well, and everyone's just the technology's gotten better and everyone's gotten more comfortable with virtual meetings. Yeah. So the two combined, and it's just like, I've got to schedule that room. I've got to check somebody in. I've got to leave my desk when it's like, from an efficiency standpoint, I get it, but it's still kind of, if you're local.
I love the in-person. I'm hopefully the move to Sioux Falls stuff built some trust and I can get some more meetings and some word of mouth things. Be like, this guy knows what he's doing, Right. Which I honestly think in-person meetings with body language just shows a lot more about who they are. Whereas like something's going wrong, you'd be like, hey, I got to turn my camera off for a hot second. And like, like, okay.
Well, just this podcast. I mean, I probably do in studio podcast, 1 to 10 of the virtual ones, so it's like, this is a lot more fun.
Good. Yeah. I had a lender who they started doing podcasting and she kind of fell off the train because she was like, yeah, all of them were virtual. And it was just like really hard to just like have that energy to keep doing them because you're not getting that like human interaction face to face. So I think Adam Broyne was on one of our episodes and he was talking about how he writes in pen and paper and he has like the old school thermometer for when he smokes meat. And I was like, I really feel like we're having a pendulum swing back to that. Let's go to some of those old school styles, like in person, even though it's not as efficient, it just builds relationships so much better. And I think it puts a good like mental, like mental behavior pattern in where you're like, wow, that person was really genuine. I could really tell that by X, Y, and Z in person, but not on a virtual
well,
meeting.
And his cufflinks company, I mean, that's kind of old school in itself.
Yeah.
Like getting back to that old style kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
how do you, with LinkedIn sales, like since it is online, how do you get that like authenticity so that you can land those like in-person meetings with people?
Right.
And I know you have clients internationally, worldwide, and like sometimes that's impossible, right? But if you're like, hey, I would really like to meet with this local company and help them with their LinkedIn,
right.
How would you go about doing that?
There's several different ways. I mean, without getting like too in depth with how I go about that, is, primarily I just want to build connections. So I target the people that would be a good client. I define ICP is the common acronym that we ideal customer profile. And what makes that up through search filters. So I'll build a list of people that would be perfect clients for me. And I just basically monitor everything and set up alarms. So if they do any actions, then I see it and I can comment on it and I can respond to it or have some insight into, opening up some sort of conversation with them. But I'll also reach out to them to make a connection. And I don't do the connect and pitch or pitch slap, as people like to call it. Because I know through a, lifetime of sales that,
it doesn't
especially
work.
Car sales, nobody wants to be sold the second you meet them.
Oh, 100%. I get that all the time. Like as soon as I put CEO move to Sioux Falls, probably got like 50 messages like, hey, I just connected with you. You want to hear this? And I'm like, no. I don't want to be sold something right now.
Well, and even if you are in the market for that, that's not your first interaction that you want to hear from a stranger.
100%.
So I'm all about just connecting. I put out daily content. And it's a mix. I talk a little bit about my community. I talk a little bit about LinkedIn training. I talk about my personal life. I talk about just sales generic discussions. I promote other people and their companies. So I have this mix that people get to know me and they feel comfortable with me and they get a little learning that, hey, Chuck knows what he's talking about when it comes to LinkedIn, and he's not a serial killer. So they feel like they get more comfortable with me, and when they're ready, then they start making comments, and when they're ready, they might DM me, and when they're ready, they're like, oh, I could use that, and then it opens up a opportunity for a conversation. So
cool. Last two questions here. One would be, what's kind of like gotten you plugged into the community of Sioux Falls to be like, man, I love this place? Like, is it, hey, I'm part of the chamber, or I'm on this volunteer board? Is there anything like that where you're like, I really love that about
I've done it all.
Okay.
I've done the chamber. I've been a part of Forward Sioux Falls. I've been a part of SME. I've been pretty much BNI, every group that's been out there, I've been a part of. I volunteered for different things. They're all good. The Social South Dakota that I started is along those same lines of like the modern networking. It's community based. That's going really well, and I like that. But it's just getting out there. It doesn't matter what you do, just get out there because there's so many great people in this town. And I mean, I'll go out to lunch with somebody and take a selfie and put it on social, and 25 people will say, oh, I didn't know you guys knew each other.
Yeah. I have that all the time.
Yeah. So it's, anytime you promote a relationship, and you can do so, whether it be in some sort of networking group or whatever, then everyone will introduce you to everyone else. It's a real friendly community and really business friendly as well as community friendly.
I didn't hit your ICP on LinkedIn. I mean, I added you, but we still had that like little big city feel with Jason connecting us. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
So last question, and I know I already went over this with you beforehand, but if budget wasn't an issue, top 3 things that you would change about Sioux Falls, even though it's already awesome.
Right. One of my like pet peeves. I love downtown.
Yeah.
I hate how extended bed pickup trucks like to park on Phillips and hang out 5 feet into the road.
I agree.
And people complain that there's not enough patio activity and walkway path and all that stuff. If I could convince the city or Paul or anyone else, it would be from basically, 14th to the Falls. If they could eliminate street side parking on Phillips.
Yeah.
Open up the patios, open up the sidewalks, and just make it 2 lanes of traffic going down it. I know people have issues with parking and convenience, a drop-off pickup kind of thing.
I lived in Chicago for a while. That's nothing compared to the
Indianapolis, Minneapolis, every major city is shutting down downtown city streets for more foot traffic and more walking. That just I think would really make downtown pop and would be awesome. And then I'd have a lot less road rage.
It'd get our walkability scores up too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that would be one. I think there needs to be a better lake. Closer than Okoboji.
Lake Lorraine is good.
Well, I mean, like
lake,
a sporting lake. Like, I mean, you
Madison's
can go to the
good.
river.
Madison's
so shallow and gets so green. Yeah. I was saying if they could build a reservoir that was closer, I don't know if you could make that happen off of the Sioux.
We'd have to talk to people down in Yankton and be like, hey, can we make this happen? Like,
I mean, Yankton's a great marina, but that's still
hour and a half.
It's still over a little bit over an hour, and you can't get any frontage there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all so it's the river
owned.
and it's beautiful down there. But yeah, I think if either north of town or south of town, you could dam up the Sioux and create a deep water, clean water reservoir or something and get power off of it, some hydro.
I haven't gotten that answer ever before, so that's so cool.
Especially over in the Iowa, because there's like that huge valley. Maybe we could do something with them. But that would be 2. Third, the most outrageous would be if they could make all their city streets and sidewalks heated, so no one had to shovel them.
You know how expensive that would be? They'd be like, we need state income tax instantly.
It would.
I love it though.
It would blow a budget, that's for sure. But
hey, well, if you become like some global influencer and you're making piles, maybe you just be like, "Hey, city, I'll help."
I would need Bezos
out.
Money to
Bezos money. How cool would that be? Like if a Bezos or a Musk like lived here and they were like, "Hey, I hate the cold. We're just gonna heat the sidewalks. No biggie."
Right? That'd be
awesome.
So
cool. It's a great idea though. Yeah. So, where I know I talked about my book, Not Just Another Transaction, but like where can people find you on the socials? I know you're big LinkedIn. You have a website, I would say.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you?
cssalesconsulting.com is my website, or just Google Chuck Shaver, and I'll pop up on that first page because I've got the SEO
for the LinkedIn.
Yep.
Do you have a Facebook, Instagram, any of that stuff?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I don't take care of it as well as I do LinkedIn, but it exists out there. So
cool. Well, I appreciate you being on. Like every conversation I have is always different, and I love it. So I appreciate you showing yourself as a voice in the community, showing what you're doing. You're doing something way different than a lot of people I've met before. So it's been awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Move to Sioux Falls. Don't forget to follow and subscribe at Move to Sioux Falls for the latest content, and we'll see you next time.